Okay, a beautiful day in South Florida, but not a beautiful day for the Eagles, who fall to the Dolphins. 37-31 is your final score. We are here to break it all down on the Postgame Show, presented by Rico. Amy Campbell, as always, joined by Ike Reese and Fran Duffy. A lot to talk about here. Kind of a shocking game. We talked about, Fran, before the game, that this is a dangerous Dolphins team, not to be underestimated. And Ryan Fitzpatrick, once again, has never lost to the Eagles. Initial thoughts coming out of this one?
I mean, that's
we all kind of have this dumbfounded.
Even just that last stat is crazy. We talked about this is a team that was competing. They were not the team that was tanking that everybody in the national media wanted it to seem like over the first 3 quarters of the season. This is a team that was battling to win. They had won 2 of their last 4 coming into the game. Eagles just couldn't get it done. Defense was not the defense that we had seen over the last 4 or 5 weeks. Give up that many points. It was 5 straight drives that they scored touchdowns, 6 straight drives that they scored touchdowns for Miami. It's tough to win that way.
Miami scores the most points that they had scored all season long in this one, and the Eagles fall to 5-7, Ike.
Yeah, just real surprising. Fran touched on the defense which had played so well over the last month, getting everybody back, getting everybody healthy. Jim Schwartz being able to go deep into its playbook, being able to play man coverage against, the last 4 teams with some pretty good quarterbacks mixed in there. I'm a little surprised today that Ryan Fitzpatrick, DeVante Parker, able to have the type of success they were able to have today. Ryan Fitzpatrick, very familiar going up against this Eagles secondary, this personnel, sort of knows what works against them. Obviously, last year with Tampa, being able to throw the ball up to guys like Mike Evans, Chris Godwin's, big guys, giving his guys an opportunity to make plays. That chemistry with DeVante Parker showed today, where really not that DeVante Parker had a lot of open windows to be able to complete balls there, just going up and catching 50-50 balls over the top of DBs.
I mean, he had a career day today, 159 yards on 7 catches. So that just tells you he averaged 22.7 yards per catch, 2 touchdowns, and a lot of show-stopping moments there. One thing that really stood out to me is the Eagles were very much in this. They had the lead. They had a 2-touchdown lead and weren't able to put this team away. They score going into half. They score on the first possession coming out of the half. What changed after that they weren't able to get anything going after that, and they really couldn't stop the bleeding on defense? Yeah,
I mean, the big thing was defensively, they certainly could not get a stop. Outside of the drive where they took a kneel at the end of the first half, I had mentioned earlier they had scored on 5 or 6 drives, touchdowns in a row. So the defense couldn't get a stop. Offensively, they were performing pretty well. You mentioned, that was a big thing to go into halftime, say, okay, we're going to score a touchdown before half, come out, go on a nice drive and score and reach the end zone again. After that, they had a couple drives that couldn't get going. Some incompletions down the field. I thought Carson Wentz overall in this game did a nice job getting later in the progression, was patient. You saw checkdowns. You saw a lot of the things that, I think a lot of fans were clamoring for. And what even Coach Pederson, Doug Pederson had said, let the offense work for you. He was playing to that. Then you just had some incompletions late in the game. The run game couldn't really get going. There were some flashes of it, but not enough to sustain and keep the clock and keep the football. On both sides, they just did not do enough to win this game.
Yeah, and I thought, listen, when you're a struggling team coming off 2 straight losses like the Eagles are, you have very small room for error, right? And so while they certainly played almost a perfect first half, we're coming out in the second half after that first touchdown, the opening drive, some of their bugaboos showed their heads again, drop passes, overthrows, where Carson was sort of off, where he missed some guys that was open. I thought he missed Alshon on a deep throw where Alshon was wide open down the field. Zach Ertz, couple key drops there where Carson put some nice throws in there, but you don't necessarily hold on to the ball. Also, penalties, false starts, holding calls down in the red zone to sort of backed you out of field goal range, as well as took you out of deeper territory as far as being able to score there. Those are things that in the second half they weren't doing in the first half. They showed up in the second half, and it's right, they struggled to put points on the board in the second half. Whereas in the first half, I thought they played almost a flawless first half where they were able to move the ball up and down the field.
Yeah, both teams penalized a lot in
Yep.
this one. Philadelphia, 10 penalties for 91 yards, and that was on both sides of the ball, like you mentioned. Miami, 7 for 59. Not as many yards there, but still, I think with the Eagles, too, what you saw was critical timing with some of those penalties that were drive killers for them or drive extenders for Miami.
Yeah, you saw the personal foul late in the game, a couple of late hits on Ryan Fitzpatrick that certainly helped extend drives and propel them into the end zone. Some pass interference penalties that went both ways. Offensive PI, defensive PI. It was just one of those games, and you kind of had a sense early on, like after they had that 4th and 4 for a touchdown to DeVante Parker, where all right, like this isn't going to be a game where it's not going to be a boat race. The Eagles are not going to run away. Even when they took that 2-score lead, Miami always felt like they were in it. Whether it was negative plays from the Eagles side, positive plays from the Miami side, penalties. It was a very weird game. It was a really weird game to watch live. Interested to see what it looks like on film tomorrow, but not the result that people were expecting.
Yeah, interested to hear kind of where some of those breakdowns were when you get to look at things a little closer. Another thing, talking about the offensive breakdown, and Ike, you mentioned this, the run game not really able to get going there that much. In terms of the breakdown, the Eagles 92 rushing yards to where's the passing yards? 294 passing yards. So they were actually pretty successful. I actually had that as like one of my halftime notes. They're getting it done through the air, but then you kind of see that lack of balance kill them down the stretch.
Yeah, I mean, listen, they ran the ball very well in the first half. I thought Miles Sanders with some nice chunk plays in there. And even in the second half, when they had control of the game early in the second half, the problem is that the defense not being able to get stops. Miami being on sort of that roll where they score on 5 straight possessions, they score touchdowns. Doug he's sensing that the game is sort of getting away from him. So you're kind of caught between, do you want to go into trying to play ball control offense, or do you want to remain aggressive and try to move the ball down the field through the air? And unfortunately, we had to get away from the running game because Miami did so well moving the ball through there, really putting the pressure on the Eagles offense to try to keep up with them in the second half. You saw that 2-touchdown score lead close real quickly. It was 28-14 at one point, and next thing you know, it was 34-28 before you blinked. And that's just how fast Miami was moving the ball in chunk plays. So as an offensive play caller, you can certainly understand where Doug is sensing that the game is kind of getting away from him, and he wants to sort of remain aggressive, but at the same time trying to remain balanced by trying to eat up some of that clock and give his defense a little bit of a break.
One of the plays that I felt was, almost, I don't want to say the turning point, but that offensive PI call, against the Eagles in that, in the third quarter.
Yeah.
It ended up being a 3-and-out, but the offensive pass interference on Nelson Aguilar on that pass intended for Alshon Jeffery. That was a killer.
Easily gone the other way.
Could have gone the other way.
It's
one. I think the coaching point probably for Nelson is not to stop his feet there.
Yeah.
You're asking for the flag to be thrown if he just runs his route. He probably does not get the flag thrown on him in that situation. But I think ultimately, when you look at this game, just kind of looking at these third quarter drives, you had a third down sack, you had the third down penalty. The Eagles, at the end of the day, were pretty good on third down. They were 50%, but those crucial plays on 3rd and long, I mean, that cost them the game in the second half.
Well, yeah, go ahead, Ike.
No, I was just going to say those are drives that if you convert on 3rd down there, you're able to keep that Dolphins offense on the sideline as opposed to putting them back on the field and not giving your defense an opportunity to rest. Defense played like they were on their heels in that 3rd and 4th quarter.
Well, yeah, and those third down numbers on the other side, if you're looking at Miami's numbers, they were 5 of 12, 42%, but that's a little deceiving because throughout most of the game, they were in the high 50 percentages on that category.
And they were 3 for 3 on 4th down.
3 for 3 on 4th down, and 4 for 4 in the red zone there. So you just see the difference in execution there as well. Can we talk about the trick play? What is it with the Eagles defense that gets fooled by a trick? I mean, that is a trick play. I've never seen anything like that before. It was the kicker catches the touchdown from the holder for Miami to get in the end zone there. That was, it was kind of fun to watch. You hate that it's against you, but as a fan of the game, it was like, okay, Brian.
Ike, what is your thought on that? Because as a defensive player, like if that had happened week after week, at one point you say, okay, tip of the cap to the offense. Hey, that's a nice play. The play last week with Russell Wilson, it was a great throw on the flea flicker. This one, great play design, as Amy said. on one side of it, you say, all right, well, this is how they're going to have to score points. They got to pull all the tricks out of their bag to try and move the ball on us. On the other side, you say, this is clearly an area where they think that we are prone to giving up trick plays.
Yeah.
As a defensive player, how do you kind of view that?
Well, you got to view it as a team views us as an unfundamental team, right? So the way I look at that is that those plays work when your defense lacks sort of the ability to stay fundamentally sound in the defense, the principles of the defense. Defense is called like that, even in a field goal safe. There are man-to-man principles in that defense. So once those plays break, you notice on all those trick plays, there is a man coverage breakdown. Someone has allowed their man to run free. Same thing happened last week versus Seattle, where the receiver was allowed to break free and run. Same thing happened in the New England touchdown. And in this play against the Dolphins, it's a play to kind of catch you off guard because of the formation. But if you just rely on the principles of the defense and go back to your responsibilities in your defense, when that play breaks, it's just like a botch snap. When a botch snap happens, what are your principles? What are your fundamentals in that defense? What are your responsibilities? This is my man. You got to put your eyes on your guy. What happened there is they see the ball snap to the kicker, and everybody decides, I'll go get him. Yep. I'll go get him. And you leave your man uncovered. Easy play for the kicker to toss the ball to the other guy. Guy's wide open. That's a play that's ran against a team where the opponents feel like you aren't fundamentally sound, right? When once a play breaks down, there's mental breakdowns as well in that defense.
So if you're Jim Schwartz, then what is the teaching point this week when you're looking at that film? Is it that play specifically, or are you taking those three that we saw the last 3 weeks, New England, Seattle, and today?
Well, you got to be aware that teams are going to attempt these type of plays against you, right? So I guess the responsibility in those defense would be keep your eyes on your luggage, meaning keep your eyes on your man. When that play breaks down, just plaster your guy. Trust that the other guys are going to do their job. There's always the responsibility of the pass rush to get after the quarterback, to get after the punter or the kicker when they're running a fake. When the guys are eligible to go out as receivers, there's man-to-man responsibilities there. You got to do your job and trust that the other guys are doing their job.
Yeah, do your 111th. I mean, that's really the keep your eyes on your luggage thing was a term I've definitely heard, throughout the course of just talking with defensive coaches. And, again, that's the thing is when you are asked to play very aggressive, and that's the mentality of this Eagles team is that they're going to be very aggressive defensively, attack anything that moves. You're going to be prone to certain kinds of those plays. You don't want it to be to the extreme of where they're at right now, where every week it seems there's some kind of gadget that's working for you for a big play. But that's the mindset. Now they just got to, kind of rein it back a little bit, like what Ike said. Let's
zoom in a little bit more on the DeVante Parker matchup. I know there's going to be a lot to watch in the film with this, but several different Eagles DBs on him throughout this game. It was a lot of Ronald Darby, a little bit of Jalen Mills here and there. He continued to be successful against this Eagles secondary. Yep. What did you see that this team can build on when it comes to just stopping a big play receiver like that?
I'm going to be honest. I don't even know that the film will even tell much more than what we saw on TV, because this was a guy that just went up and won. It's not like they did a great job of scheming him open, and he was wide open over the middle. How did that happen? Or he's wide open along the sideline. How did that happen? This was him just going up and winning. He's a big receiver. That's why he was a top 15 pick. This was a career game for him. Yeah. He's going to make a lot of money because I'm pretty sure he's a free agent after the year.
Yeah, it's difficult as a defense, right? You look at those plays and Jalen Mills or Ron Darby on several of those catches. They're right there in position to make a play. That's just trust between the quarterback and the wide receiver, throwing the ball up there, and DeVante Parker going up there to make a play. As Fran said, it's a guy who's a former top 15 overall pick, has been somewhat of a disappointment throughout his career. This being a contract year for him, he seems to be locked in. He's certainly having the best year of his career. Chose the wrong day for us as Eagles fans to have the best day of his career as a pro. But this type of talent and potential has always been in DeVante Parker. I think you're starting to see where he and Ryan Fitzpatrick are sort of getting on the same page chemistry-wise. And Fitzpatrick, like I said, having familiarity going up against this secondary, he knows that they're shorter and may struggle with playing the ball in the air at times, gives this guy a chance to make a play on the ball in the air. DeVante Parker, give him credit, came through catches today.
Yeah.
Well, again, when this game started, and Fran and I were talking about it in the pregame show with Ryan Fitzpatrick, it's feast or famine. He could throw, 5 touchdowns, 6 touchdowns. He could throw 5 interceptions. You don't know what you're going to get. He comes out on the first throw of the game, throws an interception to Ronald Darby, and I'm thinking, okay, this is the Ryan Fitzpatrick that's showing up today. And then that was not what we saw throughout the rest of the game. What, from your perspective as a defensive guy, what is it about him?
Well, the biggest thing he has going for him is he's a gunslinger.
Like this reckless abandon.
Yeah, he's a fearless player, obviously a journeyman. His fault to stay in this league for a decade and a half. Has had success, moderate success in sort of pockets of his career. Obviously has bounced around 7 times. He faced the Eagles in a different uniform. And we've seen the best of Ryan Fitzpatrick, and we've seen a few games in there where we know he'll turn the ball over. But here's a guy who plays the game fearlessly, understands that his time in this league is borrowed time. He's going to make the most of his opportunities when he gets his opportunities out there. He plays with sort of a fearless, reckless sort of approach to the quarterback position, and that's called high-stakes poker.
Yep.
And, he can live by it or die by it. And unfortunately for us as Eagles fans, we've seen some of his better games in the NFL, and today he certainly had another one.
To me, one of the things I'm excited to see tomorrow when I watch the film is the second half. The first half pass rush was after Ryan Fitzpatrick. I mean, you saw it was 3 sacks in the first half, but a few near misses as well. Derek Barnett nearly had a strip sack at one point. They had a couple really close hits just as he got rid of the football. And I mentioned it on the kickoff show that this is a guy that wants to turn it loose. He's going to get the ball out quickly. I think when you saw in the second half, and this is what I'm interested to see, is that he felt that the rush was there. He hit the top of his drop, ball's coming out. So the rush, that's why you tend to see a little bit more blitzing as well, because they said, we have to get there fast. We have to get there fast because the ball's coming out. It's going to be interesting to see what happened on film, because to me it seemed like it's not even what they were doing schematically to negate the pass rush. This was a Fitzpatrick game of top of the drop, I'm getting rid of the football.
Yeah, I think that's going to be an interesting thing that we can learn more about as time unfolds, because like you said, the pass rush was getting after him kind of early on, and then they were able to kind of get things going. All right, let's hear from the head coach about this one.
I look back on it, and we just had too many inconsistent plays. Didn't make enough plays to finish the game. Penalties really kind of set us back a little bit. Lack of execution, offensively on third down. There were enough things to go around. I think that just kept us from finishing and sustaining the game.
How deflating is a loss like this with so much on the line? You guys having the ability to be tied for first, and you come down here against a Dolphins team that's really struggling and not to be able to pull this out.
That's a good football team. Listen, this is the NFL. They compete hard. We knew that coming down here. I think what's deflating is the part that's disappointing. And we always control what we can control, and it's about us and to not to do the things that we are capable of doing today. The lack of inconsistency all around, is the most disappointing thing.
Your 2 corners struggled on the outside with Parker. Doug, your thoughts?
He's a good player. He's a good player. And our guys were in position, and then, they'll take a look at the tape and see what they could have done better. But again, credit their the quarterback and the receiver for making those plays. I mean, they did it.
On the field goal trick play, did you consider calling a timeout in that situation?
No, that's something we knew that coming in here, that this is one of the more sort of gadget play, special teams, coordinators and teams that we have faced, and our guys were prepared during the week for anything that they presented us. Again, just great execution on their part.
They scored 5 touchdowns on 5 consecutive drives, and then had a long field goal drive. What went wrong defensively, and why was the defense not able to adjust?
Well, I think some of those, again, came down to penalties. We had 2 big 15-yard penalties in there that kept them on the field. They converted 4th down, some 3rd and longs. Those are areas, situational things that we've got to look at and obviously clean up. And to me, that's when I talk about consistency. That's what I'm talking about. We got to be more consistent in those areas.
You had good field position a couple of times to start both halves, scored touchdowns. The rest of your possessions, you have to go a long way. without a running game to let you generate those 12 and 14 play drives, makes it very tough.
I mean, it's hard to go the long, hard way like that. I thought we did some decent things in the run game, but again, there were some. I know in the first half there were some penalties that negated some of the long runs and set us back. But it's hard in this league to do that consistently, to put 80-yard or 75-yard drives together all the time. But we got to just do better. I mean, we started the game with the turnover, and that was great. We got the touchdown right away, and those are things that we got to do more of.
Will you see more split carries between JHI and Miles Sanders as you progress throughout the season?
I don't know. We'll take a look at that this week. We got some time. We're obviously very comfortable with both guys, and we'll see how they fit into our game plan next week.
Have you taken them lightly, your guys, to keep them locked in the rest of the way? I mean, 4 big ones, and conceivably the division's still at play here.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing is as crazy as this is. I mean, I would say it's a long shot, but we're not out of it. We do have 4 of our division opponents coming up, and the guys got to understand that, and it's my job to make sure they do understand that we're still fighting and coming to work this week and ready to go and try to figure this thing out. I've got to give them and show them that exactly where we are and what we need to do with these next 4 games.
Zach had some plays today that he didn't make that he normally makes. Do you attribute that to sort of his lack of involvement in practice this week, or to his injury, or anything like that?
Zach takes a lot of pride in making those plays, and he's made a ton of those plays over the years for us and for the Eagles, and he'll take a look at it and try to do better next time. But it's unfortunate that, and I know he's disappointed in not making those plays.
This is kind of loss that doubt can creep into the locker room of like, how good are we if we lost this game? Do you feel like you're going to have some mindset work to do this week with them?
I think that there'll probably be a little bit of that. And that's the thing that in my position, I've got to make sure that the team understands that we got to guard against that, and we're still a good football team. And again, listen, it's about what we do. We self-destructed in a couple areas today, and it hurt us. And we didn't make enough plays. They made them, we didn't. So those are the things that I talk about when I talk about being a disciplined team and all that kind of stuff. That's something we got to take a look at as a whole group, as a team, and get that area fixed.
As a follow-up to that, did you take them lightly?
Not at all. That's a good football team. I'm telling you, it's a good football team. Record does not indicate anything about them at all. They're well coached. It's a disciplined group. They play hard. You see that on film. And even some of the games that, obviously their record, again, doesn't show that, but these guys battle for 60 minutes, and we knew that coming down here.
Did your leadership, with the losses the last 2 weeks, there was a lot of focus on getting things straightened out and getting a win here. Did your leadership come through in that regard? Did the team leaders do what they were supposed to do?
You know what? That's on me, and so I got to make sure that I'm doing my part. I'm the main leader of this team, and I'm going to make sure that I do my part this week to get us prepared.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, thanks.
All right. Coach, very somber after that loss. A couple of things stood out to me. We made too many inconsistent plays, too many things that kept us from finishing. We self-destructed in a couple areas today. We are still a good football team. It's my job to remind the team of that. Still, somehow, with the way the schedule is working out, everything is still kind of ahead of them, even though we say it every week. Ike, do you have any takeaways from Coach's press conference there?
I'm not surprised. I mean, Doug there, you can tell he's very disappointed. This is a game that they know that they should have won, could have won. Certainly, you want to reap the fruits of your labor that you put in throughout the week. And I thought they had a very good game plan when you look at it from the offensive side of the football. I like some of the things they were doing with Carson today, moving him outside of the pocket, using that athleticism, cutting off half the field for him, throwing some screen plays in there. And to put up 31 points, I know they probably felt they could have scored 38 to 41 points, missed out on some opportunities there. But as an offensive coach, first and foremost, and then, he's a head coach, obviously, but he's going to take pride in what happens on that side of the ball. And even though they put up 31 points, he's thinking about the 4 or 5 plays where they missed out in certain opportunities. And then obviously you look at the defensive side of the ball where they've been fighting their hearts out for the last month. Didn't have a great game today, so you would have liked to have been able to pull this one out for your defensive side of the football. Obviously, as a head coach, he knows the season isn't over with, understands exactly where they are in the standings. And while it can sort of sound like sort of cliche-ish, the season is not over. It isn't over because of the division that they're in, because of the team that's ahead of them lost this past Thursday. But this is one that's going to hurt for 24 hours. But they got to get it out of their system, Amy. Get back here next Monday night and be ready to take on the Giants.
Yeah.
You can't let the Dolphins beat you twice.
Yeah,
When
exactly.
you play in New York next Monday.
Cliche for a reason. Fran, you've been crunching some numbers during Coach's press conference here. Why didn't you?
Well, you asked about the offensive drives, what
Yeah.
happened in the second half. So I just kind of went through the drive chart, just took a look. And I think, the Eagles offense had 11 drives in this game. And when you look at the drive chart, first drive, touchdown, up 7-0. Field goal, second drive, up 10-0. They had a punt on the third drive that came back on the Mac Hollins penalty, that block in the back. That was a second and long, big play for a first down. Now sets you back a little bit. Field goal, fourth drive, touchdown, missed field goal. That was the critical play where Zach Ertz had the drop on second down. Then he had a third down sack. So then that sets them back. They missed the field goal. That was a crucial play, obviously, in this game. Next drive, they go punt. You had 2 deep shots incomplete to Alshon Jeffery, along with a -4-yard screen pass to Miles Sanders. So those 3 plays forced a punt. Next drive, you had the Nelson Aguilar offensive pass interference on third down that forced them to punt. After that, it was the field goal and then the final drive. So at the end of the day, when you look at it, you say, man, well, I mean, they moved the ball. They were able to put points on the board. They scored 31, which, for this offense, what they've been able to do this year is a fine day. Like you mentioned it, they just couldn't play complementary football today where, the defense had been playing at such a high level over the last few weeks. They were not their best today, and the offense couldn't just do just enough to help push them over.
And when the Dolphins, like you said, are picking up the pace and the ball's coming out quick and they're just moving the ball down the field, to not be able to go shot for shot like that. Like, at first glance, it does sound like that's a pretty solid game, but with the pace being what it was and the defense doing that, you're expecting maybe a higher scoring game from the Eagles on both sides if they're going to be matching what the Dolphins are doing. Let's get to your takeaways as we wait for Carson Wentz to take the podium. Let's get to Ike's takeaways.
Yeah, we mentioned the offense. Fran just went through the first few drives. That first half, I thought they played almost flawless football in that first half, being able to move Carson around in the pocket, getting him out on the perimeter. I thought the running game was working very well in the first half. Carson almost 300 yards passing today, 3 touchdowns, the meaningless interception, the last Hail Mary pass of the game. Couple throws in there that he would like to have back, because I know he wants Alshon Jeffery. I think Alshon may have had his best game of the season when you look at the yardage that he was able to put up today. Could have very easily had 40, 50 more yards of receiving if Carson was able to hit him. And then the receivers, there's a couple drop balls there where I know those guys will want to be able to pull it in. But I thought for the most part, the offense looked fairly good today. Just to get to the point in the second half where you needed them to sort of keep some drives alive and possibly put points on the board where they kind of stalled. And some of the things that have been ailing them the past couple of weeks showed up in that third and fourth quarter.
One thing we haven't talked about, that second to last drive where they hit the field goal. Yeah. There were a few plays that landed. There was the play where there was challenge where Nelson, was it a drop or was it a catch and a fumble?
That was a nice throw there.
Out of bounds.
Yeah.
The one before that was a completion to Alshon Jeffery where he caught it and landed and it seemed to be rolling out of bounds. And they kept the clock running.
Kept going.
Those were pivotal seconds that go off the clock. And instead of the Eagles getting the ball with 8 seconds left, it's 30 seconds left. So, to me, I'm questioning whether or not that should have been stopped. I mean, I'm not sure why, especially the Alshon one. When we were watching, that should have been. I don't know why the clock doesn't stop there. And even the one with Nelson, he catches that. They rule it a catch, but then they keep the clock running, even though he landed out of bounds. When the ball came out, the ball was out. So 2 plays to me that I would like to go back and kind of see that one.
Yeah, I'm interested to hear the explanation if we ever get one. Like you said, those little moments that turn into bigger moments. Going back to Alshon, he's been out a couple of weeks, and so kind of was interested to see what kind of rhythm he got into today. I thought there were some of those misses in the second half, kind of late in the game, whether it was Carson not putting the ball where Alshon could get it or something that Alshon was doing. But I thought, at least through the first half and even mostly through the third quarter, that those two looked like they were in a pretty good rhythm, especially with Alshon, having missed some time and coming back. And like you said, possibly his best game of the season, 137 receiving yards for Alshon.
Yeah, here's the thing that I've come to realize with Alshon and Carson this year. The deep balls, they just aren't going to work very often. I think there's a little bit of timing issue there. Obviously, Alshon isn't a burner, and when you're working with different receivers where Carson may be used to throwing the ball to Nelson Aguilar down the field, even, Deshaun earlier in the season, I think the timing may be off on the deep balls. They seem to have pretty good timing on the slant routes and the out routes to the outside where he can get the ball to Alshon very quickly. It's just that when they're going down the field, a quarterback wanting to get the ball deep down the field, either you got a burner that's going there or you got a guy that's trying to get down the field. And they're going to need more games together on a consistent basis to get that timing going. But other than that, I thought when they were able to put the ball, when Carson's able to put the ball in Alshon's catch radius, Alshon was bringing it in today.
He had a couple of really nice ones. The one that I'm excited to see on film was it looked like it was a completion. It was a completion to Alshon along the right sideline. The broadcast didn't show us many replays today, so we didn't really have that benefit. But I think when you look at what it seemed to me was that it was some kind of an option route, like a comeback route on the outside, and they were on the same page. And you kind of saw the interaction between the two of them after the play where they make eye contact. And, you can kind of see that they were kind of working it out, which I thought that was good to see from a chemistry standpoint.
Yeah, and you felt like the rhythm was there, just hit Alshon perfectly in stride on that one. That one stood out to me as well. Who do you guys think was the second leading receiver on the team today?
Second leading receiver?
And Miles Sanders.
From a catching standpoint or yardage
Receiving yards, from a receiving yards standpoint.
Dallas Goedert.
Dallas Goedert, that's correct. What did you think of his game today?
Yeah, he had a couple.
66 yards, 7 catches, or six catches on 7 targets.
Yeah, I think when you looked, you had a couple screens in there, which is what we've seen. That's been a staple of this Eagles offense is the screen to Dallas Goedert. He had a couple catches over the ball that were impressive. He had one near the right sideline that was good. We know the kind of athlete, the kind of upside that Dallas Goedert has. I mean, he's got the ability to be one of the best tight ends in the NFL when you look at his physical skill set. The drops have been an issue this year, and the ball security has been an issue for him this year. Those two things, when you loop those in together, that's been the issue for Dallas Goedert. It's not a skill standpoint.
Yeah,
and I touched on this earlier. I love the fact that they cut off half the field for Carson.
Yeah.
Even rolling him to his left side, his opposite throwing hand. You allow these tight ends to be able to run away from these linebackers in safety and man coverage. Carson throws the ball, I think, with more accuracy when he's able to use his athleticism. He doesn't necessarily need to get his feet set and able to be accurate with these throws. This is where his sort of baseball background sort of comes into play. And he's able to hit Goedert or Ertz coming across the middle of the field. Able to hit Nelson, I thought, a couple times as well with accuracy on the run. The throw to Nelson in the end zone on a 2-point conversion will be understated because it was a 2-point conversion. But the fact that was over his shoulder and Nelson was able to pull that in, that was another accurate throw from the opposite side of the field.
Yeah. We are a few minutes away from Carson Wentz. Let's get to your second takeaway while we wait.
Well, the defensive side of the ball struggled a little bit. We haven't had to talk much about the defense in a negative standpoint in the past month because they played so well and kept this team in games, really helped them to victories in Buffalo and against Chicago. But today, I don't know what it was. Maybe it was the heat down there in South Florida. Maybe it was just the familiarity of Fitzmagic throwing up against this secondary. But DeVante Parker and Ryan Fitzpatrick able to connect several times today down the field. The tight end, Jeffery, out of Penn State, second-year player, thought he had one of his better games of his career. Again, guys not necessarily wide open, just big body guys, and Fitzpatrick just putting the ball up there and then letting them go up to catch the ball. I didn't think we did a great job today playing the ball in the air, the 50-50 balls. You got to give credit to the Miami Dolphins receivers. They won that battle. I thought our defense up front in the first half was able to get to Fitzpatrick and disrupt him. In the second half, some quick throws, even the ones down the field, were more or less 3-step drops and just throw it up there and let DeVante Parker go up and get it. That's how they sort of neutralized our pass rush in the second half.
Well, and it wasn't just DeVante Parker. Like you said, Mike Gesicki had some nice plays as well. Laird, who I did not know of today. Amazing game from him as well. I'm just looking down the receiving yards list for the Dolphins, and there's a lot of guys that racked up a lot of yards. So if we take DeVante Parker out of it, what were they able to do so well in the passing game? Was it just the one-on-one matchups? You know, you talk about Parker, hey, he's just able to go up and get it. But if we take that out of the equation, a lot of other guys had success.
Yeah, I think with Gesicki, you saw him win some one-on-ones, you know, where he's just bigger, stronger, and can out-jump you. This is a guy that had that volleyball background coming out of Penn State,
Yes.
you know, the ability to just jump over everybody. So there was that. But that was some of the other
today.
Yeah, but then there were some other things, you know, schematically. Albert Wilson, yeah, he was their 5th leading receiver, 5 catches for 32 yards. He was their leading rusher. You know, they threw in the Wildcat. They had some screens in there. The big thing was just the one-on-one matchups in this game. To me, I think you look at Parker, you look at Gesicki, and the 2 guys that they were able to just go up and make plays over the Eagles' defensive backs. I mean, that was the reality of this game.
All right, so we are still a few minutes away from Carson Wentz, so let's get to your third takeaway while we're waiting.
Oh, this is probably the biggest one. Just a missed opportunity to really take advantage and propel themselves into a tie for first place with the Dallas Cowboys. Start to get some momentum going coming down the stretch here where the schedule sort of sets up in an advantageous sort of way for the Eagles going up against 2-9 opponents. Not able to take advantage of that today against a Miami Dolphins team with seemingly nothing to play for, but they have played well. 2 wins in the last 4 games. They've been a lot more competitive over the last month, but clearly the Eagles should have been the better team on paper in this game. And I thought going down to Miami with motivation after what happened on Thursday night, Buffalo knocking out the Dallas Cowboys, an opportunity for the Eagles to gain another tiebreaker advantage over the Cowboys in a common opponent where the Cowboys lose to the Bills. And if the Eagles were able to beat the Dolphins, that's an advantage you have. Just not able to take advantage of that. This game, a lot tougher than it should have been today. But that's why they say, Amy, any given Sunday.
That's why they play the game, right? Yep. One of my favorite quotes in all of sports. But yeah, let's talk about that division a little bit, because like you said, kind of up for the taking, a really good chance for the Eagles to get ahead today, especially with that Cowboys loss. But sitting at 5-7, if they win the next 4, that's a 9-7 record. That's beating the Cowboys here in Philadelphia, and that's the same record that took them to the playoffs last season. So as weird as it feels, you know, as disappointing as today is, and as disappointing as the last few weeks have been, somehow they did it last year, and we're kind of in a similar situation.
Well, yeah, that's the good news of today, right? The bad news is the final score of the game. The good news is we are still in the exact same situation
here to keep it positive, guys,
as we were Wednesday, or I should say Thursday, prior to kickoff in Dallas. The Eagles still control their own destiny. If they win out, they are division winners. And that's where we are right now. They got an opportunity to finish up 9-7, 4 games. Again, that are very winnable for them, but the Eagles have got to find a way to play a complete football game. It's the one thing they have not done throughout this season, through 13 games, right? 12 games or 13 games?
13 games.
13 games. They have not played a complete football game.
Yep.
Defense, offense, and special teams. They got to find a way to do that coming down the stretch.
I mean, the Giants took one on the chin today from Green Bay, but
yeah.
Washington
won.
They beat Carolina, a good football team that's competing. So this is a team that under a new coach, under an interim coach, is competing as well. You're not just going to walk down to D.C. and say, oh, we're definitely going to come away with a win. So the Eagles have got to bring their A game each and every week. There's no margin for error now for this team if they want to go to the postseason.
Well, and you know, when we look at the schedule and you say, okay, it's going to be a tough road stretch. There's going to be a couple of tough opponents with New England and Seattle both coming off of a bye. But then, they get to be at Miami, and then it's going to get a little easy with really only the Cowboys there. And there's no way that if all of us are thinking that, there's no way that the players completely avoid that mentality. As much as they say we're going 1-0 every week, it has to creep in a little bit, right?
Yeah, I mean, listen, the players are aware, and in today's age with social media, there's almost it's impossible not to be aware of what's going on. The issue is whether or not you become overly consumed with it, right? So you can take the information on its face and realize that you haven't lost any ground. You still have an opportunity to win this division. You just got to figure out a way to get your own act together. And once you play a complete game, you see how good you can be. This defense knows how good it can be. They've gone up against 2 of the best quarterbacks in the history history of this game. And Brady and Russell Wilson last week and saw how good they can be. Yep. But then they also saw this week that if you don't play your A game, this is what can happen to you. And the offense is going to have an opportunity over the last month to continue to get healthy. They aren't going up against necessarily stellar defenses. There's going to be opportunities for them to make plays. They have to just take care of the football, and they have to continue to not beat themselves. Do what you did for 2.5 quarters today, and you can't have those periods where your offense just sort of falls off like it did for about 1.5 quarters in this game, because 31 points wasn't enough, sadly, and you just never know how many you need to score each week.
Okay, we are about a minute away from Carson, so really quick, what would be your turning point of this game? You got 60 seconds.
Well, for me, it would have been the second down touchdown drop that Zach Ertz had, and then the third down play where Carson got sacked, and then we missed a field goal on the following fourth down play. To me, that was the turning point in the game where you could have extended the lead and slowed down some of that momentum that the Dolphins had going on. Instead, not only do you drop a touchdown pass, you get sacked the very next play, and you missed a field goal. That just adds to the momentum that the Dolphins had going.
Yeah, what about you?
To me, it would be the 4th and 4 reception for DeVante Parker, their first touchdown of the game. That kind of set the tone, not just for DeVante Parker, but their aggressiveness throughout the course of the afternoon.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're just close to Carson taking the podium and hearing from the Eagles quarterback. As far as a turning point, I think I would have to go with that missed field goal as well. And the first one that Jake Elliott missed all year, though a 51-yarder, not exactly set up for success there. And you mentioned a couple of the factors there for that as well. Let's hear from Carson.
Carson, how deflating is a loss like this with so much at stake, tied for first place on the line? The Dolphins are really struggling at 2-9.
Yeah, it's a frustrating loss, especially given the circumstances, like you said, and coming down here on the road, hoping for a big road win to kind of get us out of the funk, and just didn't make enough plays, came up short today.
Why do you think you guys are struggling so much this season?
It's really hard to say. Every game's different, but at the end of the day, we just, we're not making enough plays in critical situations to win ball games. We've been close in a lot of these, and just collectively as a team, we're just, coming up short in those critical situations, and that starts with me. I got to be better in a lot of those, those big time situations too, and that's probably the biggest thing that I noticed right off the top.
Carson, you guys went ahead in 2014, and then there were several offensive drives that stalled out. Were they doing anything different to you guys?
They mixed it up a little bit. After that, nothing crazy. I think we had a couple penalties, had a couple things that kind of shot ourselves in the foot, a couple missed throws that I got to make and stuff like that. But, they mixed it up a little bit once we got up there. But, we got to make better plays than that.
Was the sideline throw to Alshon one you thought you should have had, or it was after the penalty, he got after they called PI and then the next
I gotta make a better throw for sure. Yeah, definitely.
Carson, what makes you think that the team is able to bounce back from this based on the way things have gone the last few weeks?
For me, my belief in everybody in that locker room doesn't change. Obviously, fell short today. Circumstances, not ideal to come in here and lose again. But I have a lot of faith, a lot of belief in the guys that we have, and I've seen crazier. I've seen crazier. We just got to find a way, get back on top. Next week, go 1-0 next week, and see what happens.
Are you angry after a loss like this?
I try not to be too down. It's definitely frustrating, without a doubt. But for me, it's on to the next. This league is such a fast turnaround. You have no time to really sulk or feel bad or be pissed off. There's always things to learn. We're gonna do that. But it's got to we got to turn right back around and get ready for the Giants.
What was your view on the Hail Mary? Did you think you had a chance?
I couldn't really tell. I just saw a lot of kind of excitement going on there and the ball pop up, but I didn't know what was going on until I saw the Dolphins guys cheering afterwards.
On the field goal drive there late in the fourth quarter, the 2nd and 10 play was a sack. What would you have wanted to do there? Were you trying to make a play?
Yeah, I should just throw it away. Throw it away or do something. I was trying too hard to make a play and force something, and taking the sack there was obviously not ideal.
Is this a game you thought you were going to win? You should have won, playing the Dolphins 2-9.
We don't overlook anybody. And hats off to them. They came out today and played a good team game. and we got to be better. We got to execute better. But I don't think anybody in this locker room overlooks anybody. This is the National Football League. There's no slouches out there on Sundays. So we did not take it for granted at all. They played a great game, and they got the win today.
It's hard to imagine a more critical situation than this coming into this game. Lost 2 in a row. Why weren't the plays made in critical situations? I mean, was the preparation not there?
I don't think it was preparation. I don't think it was, there's really no excuses. We just didn't make them. Plain and simple, we didn't make them. I thought we had a good game plan. We stayed the course. Thought we did a pretty good job with that. There's definitely plays that we all want back. But yeah, there's really no excuses. We just didn't make enough plays.
Was there a concerted effort to get you more outside the pocket, throwing on those types of runs? It seemed that way.
Yeah, maybe a little bit. Kind of like I always talk about. Just it's all based on how the defense plays. Plays us and what we see on tape. And so that was definitely part of the game plan today.
Carson was saying this is kind of like a critical week for the leaders to kind of keep the team together and everything. I mean, do you kind of see it that way, and what do you particularly have to do?
Yeah, I mean, especially anytime we come off a loss, it's just make sure no one's pointing fingers, everyone's staying together, and not just coming off a loss, but coming off now 3. And that's not a place we want to be, and not something that we ever want to experience. But without a doubt, anytime you're in this situation as a leader, you got to keep rallying the troops. And for me, and I know a lot of the guys would say the same thing, we only know how to do one thing, and that's go back to work. There's a lot of negatives from this game, all that stuff, but we're going to go back to work, we're going to learn from it, and hopefully be better next week.
Moving forward, Carson, you have 4 divisional games coming up now, 2 against the Giants, Redskins, and Cowboys. Does your mindset change going into play when you play these guys? Because you see them twice a year.
I wouldn't say it changes, but we're excited. We're excited for divisional play like this, and it's the last month of the season. But first and foremost, we got to take care of business this week first. But yeah, we're definitely excited to go back to work, try and go 1-0 next week, and just keep playing, see what happens.
You guys scored over 30 today. Does it feel like the offense and defense just aren't clicking at the same time right now?
Probably. I think that's definitely less. Obviously, we had a couple of really bad showings offensively, and we came out here and put up points. But I believe in the defense. I believe in the offense. I think we're going to get this thing going in the right direction. And, obviously it's tough to lose the way we did with the circumstances, like I said earlier. But a lot of faith that we're going to get this thing going.
Carson, I know you said you don't want to finger point, but how do you guys hold each other accountable as teammates? And are you guys holding each other accountable?
That's part of what we do, and especially as leaders is holding each other accountable. And, mistakes from a game, those are all things that we're going to learn and hold each other accountable. And I know the guys that we have in there, everyone's going to own their mistakes. I'm going to own, I left some plays out there. I missed some throws. I got to be better. And everyone's going to do that and look themselves in the mirror and, hopefully, have a better showing next week.
Hurts missed some plays that he typically makes. What sense do you have of what he was going through today and this week?
Yeah, obviously, like you said, you don't see that. You never see Hurts, miss a ball like that. And for me, I make mistakes too. And I told him right after, we're coming right back to him. I always say that. And, he's one of the best in the world. And so I'm not worried about him making a mistake. He's going to get right back on it, and I have nothing but faith and confidence in him going forward.
How was your trust with Alshon? And you know there had been a period that we had in front of each other was there for the most part.
Yeah, I felt really good with Alshon today. Definitely some throws I want back for sure, and some plays that him and I can make together. But having him back out there was huge for us. It definitely gave us a spark, and I think we have a lot of trust in each other for sure.
Okay, thanks,
Thank you guys.
Thanks.
Okay, Carson Wentz says there is no time to sulk. We have a quick turnaround because that's how the NFL goes. He said it's my job to rally the troops. Good stuff there from the Eagles quarterback. Again, we heard from Doug Pederson a little bit earlier, but as always, he is one-on-one with our own Mike Quick. Let's take a listen.
Coach, how tough is this when you come down here with a chance to get back to 500 and let this one get away? How tough is it?
It's hard. I know how much these guys work during the week to prepare and put themselves in this position to come down here and try to win this game. But, we just didn't do enough today. Our lack of inconsistency in some areas and the penalties really hurt us, kept them on the field, didn't make enough plays offensively. And there's enough to go around again that, we got to look at and really, again, as coaches, we got to make sure we're putting our players in the right position to be successful.
What were the adjustments that they made offensively in the second half? They seemed to score on every possession.
I think some of it came down to our lack of discipline on penalties. There were some big penalties in there that kept them on the field, and then they made some plays on fourth down, obviously, to stay on the field. Those are things that I try to do. Obviously my part, try to put our football team in those scenarios and in those situations, so when it comes up in the game, we understand the situation that way. We just didn't make enough plays. I mean, credit them for doing that, and it's disappointing.
Mathematically, you're not completely out of it, but what is the message? How do you approach your team with the way to go forward?
Yeah, I mean, we got to continue to work. That's all I know. We still got a month left of the season. 4 games are all division games, and we just got to take them one at a time. We got to come to work this week, get ready for the Giants, and try to put everything behind us best we can, and move forward. I think the guys will really respond to that, and they have all season long. And it's disappointing, obviously, but we still have an opportunity.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you.
All right, Coach Doug Pederson doing one of the things he does best, trying to add some perspective and a long season view to this Eagles loss to the Dolphins today. All right, we are going to take a quick break. We are going to see Fran a little bit later in the show for the Rico review, which is always one of my favorite parts. Stay with us. Hey there, welcome back to the postgame show presented by Rico. Eagles rookie Miles Sanders, a career rushing yards day for him, 83 yards on the ground, 22 receiving yards and a receiving touchdown on the first possession of the game for the Eagles. It was a drive that took only 56 seconds right there early in the first quarter. And that is the subject of today's Rico review. Fran Duffy, take it away.
All right, well, let's get to that touchdown. A touchdown pass from Carson Wentz to Miles Sanders. And one of the things I thought Carson Wentz did a really good job of early in this game was finding the check down, making a lot of late in the progression throws to his receivers, and that might have been to wide receivers, tight ends, or backs. I thought he did a really good job in that first half. And this touchdown on the first third down of the game was a good example of that. To start things off, you're going to get a little switch concept from the Eagles here, where both Nelson Aguilar and Alshon Jeffery are going to switch release up vertically to the top of the field. And you're going to see here as Carson Wentz takes the snap, that's where his eyes go. He wants to work this bottom part of the field here, this little route concept from the Eagles. So we'll take the snap and let Carson Wentz drop back and see where his eyes go. He's looking to the right. He sees right off the bat this isn't going to open up for him. He doesn't like the picture. So the next part is he's going to work this little high-low concept here in the middle of the field with the two receivers to the top. That's tight end Zach Ertz and wide receiver Greg Ward. So he's going to then work this part, but he sees he's got 3 defenders over 2. These guys are taking away those 2 in-breaking routes. So we're going to let this run. Watch Carson Wentz's eyes. He gets his eyes back, and here's what he sees. He sees Zach Ertz getting jammed up. You've got basically 2 defenders on 1 here crashing down on Greg Ward. They leave Miles Sanders wide open on the backside. So Carson Wentz is going to drop back. He doesn't like his first progression to the right, gets to the middle of the field. That's taken away. Does a great job in stride of hitting Miles Sanders on the check down for a touchdown, getting it out early enough that Miles can create after the catch, get the Eagles on the board, make it 7-0 Eagles.
All right, awesome breakdown as always, Fran, on that Miles Sanders touchdown. And we are going to take a quick break, but on the other side, we have the nominees for the Toyota Player of the Week, your chance to win a free Toyota as always. And don't miss your chance to vote because I'm always really curious who you guys are going to pick. We'll see you in a minute. All right, now is the chance to vote for the Toyota Player of the Week. Go to PhiladelphiaEagles.com/Toyota Player of the Week and cast your vote and get a chance at a brand new Toyota. 3 nominees this week for the Eagles. It's defensive end Derek Barnett, wide receiver Alshon Jeffery, and of course your quarterback Carson Wentz there as the nominees. Ike, who are you taking here from these 3?
Well, I gotta go. I can't go with defense this week. I've gone defense the last 4 weeks. But I have to go with Alshon. Yeah, I got to go with Alshon. Alshon, a nice return, certainly missed his productivity in the offense. I know Carson certainly missed having him out there. Big body, security blanket, that big catch radius. Alshon seemingly healthier this week than he's been in the past couple weeks. Nice game coming back. I know those two would have liked to have hit on a couple other passes, but still 9 catches, a touchdown, 137 yards. I got to go with the big fella this week.
Yeah, I think I have to agree with you on that, but just to kind of break down a different performer, Carson Wentz, the quarterback, he completed 60.9% of his passes, which is a pretty solid number, though that was 28 of 46, so kind of throwing a lot there. 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, 310 yards, and this team was in it through the very end. You did see some more rhythm on offense, and I think having a guy like Alshon Jeffery back provided a big boost for them as well. Of course, we've mentioned everything ahead of this team. Still, somehow they have they're just as alive as ever in the playoff race and in the NFC East. And, of course, an NFC East opponent on tap. Monday Night Football, the New York Giants coming to town, a team that got eliminated from the playoff race officially today after getting beaten pretty badly by the Green Bay Packers, 31-13. Monday Night Football matchup. Ike, what do you see in this one here?
Well, I know I don't need to remind everyone. I certainly don't need to remind the Eagles players or coaches. You can't take any game for granted.
Let today be a lesson.
Right? Today, obviously, is a big lesson for that. They're going up against the NFC East divisional opponent. It'll be on national TV, the last game of the week, at home. One of 2 remaining home games. I'm sure this will be a long flight from South Florida back up here to the cold and chilly Northeast in Philadelphia. Those players aren't going to be happy about losing that game down there in Miami. And believe me, these fans, after having to wait an extra day next Monday night, they'll be ready to go. New York Giants, come on, ladies and gentlemen. And here's the funny thing, Amy. Chicago may do a favor for us Thursday night. Cowboys in Chicago Thursday night. Come on, Eagles. Got to take advantage of this.
Look, there's a lot to watch over the next few days. We have a Thursday night game, then, of course, we have a Monday night game.
Meaningful football.
Isn't that what you want in December? Isn't that what you want in December? As stressful as it is, isn't that what you want? I don't know. Some people might rather just have the whole thing locked up and not be stressed. But that is why we are always here to break it down, to talk about every side of every story, and we will be doing the same thing on Monday, 30 minutes before kickoff of that one. We will be right back here with the kickoff show. That's presented by Exalta, and Fran Duffy will be joining me for that. And then as always, Ike, myself, and Fran will be here to break it all down on the postgame show presented by Rico. Have a nice weekend, everyone. We will see you on Monday.